Hey guys, my name is Gavin Brooks, metal guitar guy and guitar teacher. And a few months ago, I asked you to send in what you're working on, what you're practicing, promising that I would give you some feedback so that you can have some insight for maybe how to practice it better and continue improving. Thank you so much to everyone who sent in a video for me to review. I really appreciate it, and you're making this video possible, and you're probably going to help a lot of other people who are benefiting from you putting yourself out there and showing off your strengths and weaknesses so we can all learn from it. So thanks. First up, we have Ekedji taking on the Waking the Demon solo. And overall, I feel like Ekedji's got a pretty solid performance of this solo. I'm going to look in detail at two of the faster bits that he probably could get a little more clean, and then we're going to talk about picking depth a little bit after that. So the first fast run sounds something like this. Clearly a run through a scale. We're in this E mixolydian position, 3-note per string, but the pattern is a pattern I'm only used to having played horizontally. This 3-1-2-3 pattern. Yet here it is in scale position, which has a lot more complex picking to it. There are bits that are fast shred that have these kind of complex string changes to them that, in my opinion, are a bit too much for a lot of us to handle if we don't already have good fundamental alternate picking shred skills. And what I mean by that is we should already be able to play through a scale just kind of comfortably with even note groups, much more simple patterns. There's only a string change happening once every 6 notes there, compared to the lick that we have in the song. For these complex string changes, I really recommend doing a burst method. So cutting it up into each group, because we know there's a pattern there. It's doing 4 notes at a time that are all keeping the same relationship. They're just moved up 1 scale degree at the time. And the way I recommend doing it is in a burst that ends with the first note of the next group. So it's going to be like, one of those changes might be harder for you, one of those might be easier. But when we zoom into it with this burst, it really lets us get comfortable with it. And then we move on to the next set, right? The next set of 4 notes plus 1, and it will start from that 1 that we did in the last set at the end. So it will be our first set, then, and if we kept going with it, you could practice it all the way up and down. The thing to notice here, especially with the picking hand, when you do these bursts, I want you to actually challenge yourself to think, can I make this feel as easy as it feels when I just play 1 string, that same amount of notes? If I just played 5 notes in a row. Because probably for most of us, we can do that quickly, much more relaxed than maybe we can this kind of... But that's exactly the way to think of it. Compare it to that feeling, because I promise you, the crazy thing about alternate picking is that it can feel as easy and relaxed as that. It's just a matter of programming the muscle memory. You can set this up with the metronome going, and basically your first note of the 5-note group is going to be on the click, and your last note of the 5-note group will also be on the click. This is 16th note, so you'll go. I would also say it's important to not rush too quickly to the next set of the scale, because it's going to have different picking changes. Really zoom into 1 at a time, because they're each going to have kind of a different feeling to them. And this will also help you isolate which ones and which types of string changes are actually slowing you down when it comes to playing the actual run. Now, the next kind of quick speedy bit we see is this very common triad-y sort of shape where we're doing like a... I just want to talk about the different ways that we can actually pick this. Because I feel like watching Ekedji's playthrough, his left hand, for where he's at, I think he's doing a great job. There just might be some things he could check out in terms of the right hand. This kind of phrase that we've been seeing in so many kinds of amazing solos over the decades, there's a few ways that we can pick it. The first way is going to favor more of an outside picking approach, and it's going to be kind of the most strictly true alternate picking approach. So we're going to go down, pull, down, up. Down, pull, down, up, down, pull, down, up. I say it favors outside picking because the quick change we have is this down into up. If you're an outside picker preference person, and that just means sort of hitting the outsides of 2 adjacent strings on a string change, you're going to love this. For me, I might prefer a method where we actually start with a upstroke, go into a upstroke, and a downstroke. So up, up, down, up, down. Just feels more comfortable for me. You'll notice as that loops too, we start to get this economy type of motion Or we have 2 upstrokes in a row, which can feel nice and efficient. Similarly, we can do 2 downstrokes in a row, where we actually go up, pull, down, down, up, pull, down, down. So I just want to let you know that you have those options, because you might find for yourself that one of those 3 variants is just way easier than the other ones. And when you're in a pinch, you need to play the solo. I think it's totally fine to just use whichever one works for you, because at the end of the day, if it sounds clean, I don't really care if you used a downstroke or an upstroke. I have a little warning for Ekedji, which is that I think he might actually be picking through the strings too deep. And the reason I say that too is because I think I can kind of hear it. If I really exaggerate, if I pick too deep, you'll notice it almost sounds like the note kind of mutes for a moment while the pick is crossing through the string, because it is happening so deep compared to a very... You can't hear the note sort of dying in between each pick stroke. Whereas you can hear it there, it's almost bending a little bit out of pitch when I do pick it. This is something I completely struggled from. I had way too deep a picking depth in my early years of playing, and I had to completely adjust it. I kind of just thought, this is metal, you should be picking hard, that sort of thing. But it really got in my way too in terms of speed gains. And so I just noticed this when he played this sort of... whatever that kind of line was, it just felt like a lot of effort from the one hand, even though he was on one string. So Ekedji, all this means is try to brush more of the top of the string and don't feel like you have to push through the entire string with the meat of the pick. And I promise when it comes to like just getting faster and faster, having a very low pick depth just makes things so much easier. Next up, it looks like Giorgos has some sweep tapping bits from a Children of Bodom song. Off the bat, like Ekedji, you might find that you're picking a little too deep. Try to be a little more gentle with those strings. It'll just make things easier. Also, another thing that I didn't really care about enough when I was a younger player, and I think might benefit you, is just to make sure your guitar is really nicely in tune, because it's going to make whatever you're playing sound better regardless of your technique. Now, for the actual meat and potatoes of it, when it comes to sweep tapping, you really need to respect it as 2 separate abilities that you're trying to combine on the fly, which, if you don't already have a strong foundation in sweeping alone, or tapping alone, it's just making it really hard on yourself. And I basically would never recommend anyone to just do sweep tapping exercises if they can't really sweep confidently alone, right? So these kind of... You want to feel comfortable just with that before we add the tapped note to it, because it's not going to make things easier. Now, when it comes to actually approaching the sweep tap, I recommend noticing what it feels like to do everything in it besides the tap, because it's a little different feeling even than just the actual loop of the sweep arpeggio, right? So just feeling... I'm omitting the last little tap and pinky legato in there. So if you can get that part feeling good, adding the tap will definitely not be too much of a challenge. And another thing to think about with developing sweep technique, I'm a big fan of just trying to have a very relaxed right hand. I don't think you need to have an exaggerated motion in each direction. I used to have a technique that looked exactly like that, and I was plateauing at 150, 160 BPM, 16th notes. The key there is having low picking depth and just training the right hand by itself. So literally just getting used to the... It's hard, but if you can do that comfortably just with the one hand, it's definitely not going to be too bad bringing the 2 together. So Giorgos, my advice to you simply is to understand that you actually have a lot on your plate. Respect how difficult it is to do just the left hand part of sweeps, regardless of what the right hand is doing. It takes a lot of strength and coordination. Just practicing that over and over again is fantastic. Work on just the right hand doing the sweeping, try to get the hands together, and then once the sweeps feel pretty good by themselves, think about that tap. I promise it'll be a much more efficient method than just sticking with the sweep taps over and over and over and over again. Next up we have Justin playing Polyphia's Neurotica, Scott's solo. Definitely a tricky one, a lot of things going on here. Clearly he's practiced it a lot. I love his left hand form. I can tell he's worked on his left hand a lot. So there's just 2 things I want to bring to note here for Justin. One is the way that we play octaves, because this solo and probably a lot of Polyphia stuff has this sort of these kind of quick little slidey things where we're pivoting on the thumb. If you watch Scott's actual video that you can actually see, I think he's using a middle finger there to mute the low E. This is just something that adds additional comfort to the way we play octaves, especially when you have to go hit that whammy. We don't really hear the low E ringing out in Justin's video when he's playing octaves, but what Justin might even be feeling too is he might be feeling kind of careful about the way he strums through this and plays this because he's trying to make sure that things don't ring out or whatever. And just when it comes to octave technique in general, you want to have a solid setup so that you can feel like you can strike through all 6 strings, no problem. And that's what I'm doing right there. I'm hitting through all 6 strings. I have lots of gain and it's not causing noise. Why? Because the lower to the ground strings are getting muted by my index finger mainly. My index finger is also touching my low E, and then you might even put that middle finger up there to touch the low E as well, just to make sure nothing can ring through. I would just say maybe get used to the habit of your index finger, the top of it, touching that string above you for octaves. Very useful in a lot of other situations too. The 8th note parts with these 4th E legato jumps with the pinky, Justin seems to be playing great. And then we have this something like that in a sort of triplet speed. So when it comes to that fast run, very helpful to just burst little chunks of it, like a, and maybe a, or whatever it is. It's also very helpful to loop things, like a, for any of those bits that really give you a hard time. This is especially true when it comes to these pentatonic 3-note per string legato things that's happening, where we have like a, which is, they're just weird jumps. And so what I do to get used to those weird jumps, don't just play them in sequence like that and then move on. Really get familiar with them back and forth. So for example, just the first 2 jumps, excuse me. Because I know what's kicking my ass here is not the speed, it's the jumps. Something I'd recommend to do is even play with some of these elements almost improvisationally back and forth, looping. So for example, there's a part of the run that's like, so what I would do rather than just playing it in that one order is actually kind of play back and forth a little bit. Ooh. That's what's really going to help you develop the fundamentals for that rather than just playing the lick over and over again. And if you're getting anything from this video, you're kind of realizing I say that about everything because, hey, that's actually the best way to approach guitar solos with bits that are above our skill level, is not to just hammer at the bit over and over and over and over again. It's to ask yourself, what is the fundamental skill here and how can I attain that? Because that's how the people who wrote the solo got to where they're at. They didn't just grind that one bit over and over again. They probably were noodling a lot with 3-note per string pentatonic stuff. And then this sort of thing was able to come out of them when it came to writing the solo. And here we have Phil Taylor, who sent in a video of playing the solo from Haken's Insomnia. I have a hunch here with Phil that he strikes me as the type of person who has actually reached quite far ahead of his ability. In a way that's, I don't mean this as a diss, it's actually, it's a commendable thing. I'm seeing his hands move fast enough, but we're actually not playing accurately enough or cleanly enough. Even though his hands are moving quickly enough, we're kind of missing a lot of the notes, or they aren't coming out with a full resonation. So the first advice here is actually just going to be taking those tricky bits and looping them. Again, appreciating them on their own until they're clean. We see some sort of B minor kind of rolling index arpeggio here. Phil, just make sure you can play it like this, just looped over and over again, at least at a kind of similar speed to your target in the song. Same for that next arpeggio, right? There's some sort of E-shaped one, which I saw you struggle with quite a bit. Literally just practice that alone over and over again, and then you'll find when you go to the solo, it's definitely going to be way easier. I saw some legato bits as well, like some sort of that you didn't seem to play quite accurately even though your hands were moving. What I'll recommend is not actually necessarily doing that whole run, whatever it was, in a row. Because again, part of what we're dealing with there is the challenge of the string change, the hopping, and it seems like you're actually pretty good at that part. The thing that was less clear from when you were playing was just actually hearing all 3 notes on each string. So what I'd really recommend is actually just staying on one string and making sure that you hear all 3 from your pulls. because it definitely takes time to train the legato muscles and to get those fingers with the strength that they need of that sort of pulling down, snapping motion. I think a great metric for all of us in approaching fast bits and solos is just to ask if we can actually do that fast bit that maybe only happens once, twice in a row, or looped, right? If there's just a quick or a, are we able to do those fast bits repeated and repeated? Because if we are, of course it's going to be fine to just do them once in the solo. And sometimes that's the skill we need to work on more than just playing through the complex string events. You can take a lot of what I said to Giorgos as well into consideration when it comes to those sweep taps. But otherwise, I would just say keep at it, and I have a feeling you're going to reach your target. And finally, we're going to close it out with Sumit playing the legendary solo from Crazy Train. And I can tell he's feeling it, which is awesome. I'm feeling it too. Cool. So I get the vibe here that, you know, basically all of his skills are looking pretty good. There's just some of these quick runs, the faster shreddy bits that are kind of slowing him down. The first lick that seems to give him some trouble is this 2-note per string pentatonic thing. And let me tell you something, me too. I so struggle with these. Up until like the last year or so, I couldn't even play these at all because it's just like my worst picking weakness with a lot of bad muscle memory that I accrued fighting against me. But I'll tell you how I got through it and some ways that I suggest it for you. So first thing is try to take the picking hand out of the equation, because I think in your case it might not be as much of the picking hand as it is the fretting hand. So what I'd ask is if you pick just the first note on each string, so you make it down, pull, down, pull, down, pull, down, pull. How fast can you get it just doing that? Because if you find that it's hard to keep at the tempo of the song just with like a burst of that, using that more legato style approach, you can get a ton of gains there just by attacking it in that way. And then at least 2, you'll be able to play it up to speed, albeit not picking every single note. Similarly, you can kind of ease your way into picking every single note by, for example, maybe we do pick, pull, pick, right? Down, pull, down, up. This is another way to get close to playing the lick without having to pick every other note. And then this might not be super applicable to you, Sumit, but other people might be interested. What helped me and is helping me make it possible to do these kind of 2-note per string back and forth changes, which I could get into it, but you don't want to hear it. It is my number one weakness, is actually to start with 4 notes per string. So like a, because I realized, hey, how come, you know, that's not so bad for me. But then 2 notes is tough. So I'm trying to ease into it because my problem is it's hard to initiate the motion. So I can go from that sort of 4-4 to a 4-2, right? Like a, I'm kind of cheating myself in there because doing the 4-2 by itself right away doesn't always feel super comfortable. Here I'm showing you one of my weaknesses, but I'm also telling you a bit about what the roadmap will look like for me overcoming it. Because I bet in a couple years, I'm going to have this sort of thing down. It's just that I haven't been able to really do it at all up until recently. And now that I've established the technique that's at least possible, it's about me getting to the feeling quicker and making it more habitual and muscle memory, something I can do right away rather than something that I have to go, well, let me do my 4s first to get into it. And the final struggle point we see for Sumit is some sort of like legato 3-note per string scale run before the final bend. This is pretty straightforward to practice. You literally just go up and down the scale using only hammers. Pull-offs are very useful as well, of course. But as far as you need it for the solo, you could literally just go. You know, kind of like I gave the advice earlier to Justin, and just sort of play back and forth. But of course, you could also use a metronome with bursts, which could really help. So for example, let's get the metronome going. And on each click, we just want to do one of these reps starting with a pick stroke. So, and set the metronome to a speed that's a bit out of your comfort zone. Something like that, or you could upgrade to 2. I think you'll totally be able to do it, Sumit. You have everything else looking fantastic in the solo. Just when it comes to getting those left-hand gains, really approach a whole session just focused on legato. Say like, I'm going to spend half an hour working out this hand, but just give yourself lots of little breaks in between. You do want to expect to feel some burn when you're pushing the speed with hammers and pull-offs. and just take 30 seconds off every once in a while to let the hand recharge. And then you'll find you're able to hit the fretboard again with that sort of fresh stamina and keep hitting those high speeds. And inevitably, you do that enough, your hand grows, your body gets the message, and you will get faster. That's all I got for you today. Big thank you again to everyone who submitted their playing. I don't know if I'm going to do another one of these videos, but if you're really eager to, you definitely can send me some of your footage to gavinbrookslessons@gmail.com. And if I make another video, I will include your clips. If you're interested in private guitar lessons, send me a message on instagram.com/gavinbrooks100. As always, I have a theory course available, linked in the description, and I'll see you next time.